Yes.
Councilmember Wardiola,
Yes.
Councilmember Hurst,
Yes.
Councilmember Grimes,
Yes.
Councilmember Smith, Mayor Pro Tem Frank,
Yes.
Mayor Huseman.
Yes.
Passes 8-0.
Thank you. This time we will recite the Pledge of Allegiance. We'd like to invite all members on the Zoom webinar to unmute their microphones and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. The clerk will display the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America
and to the republic
to which it stands,
one
nation,
under God, indivisible,
with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, everybody, for that. At the May 4th meeting, Council approved having all public comment occur during citizen communication except for public hearings. Persons who registered to speak under multiple items will be allowed to speak multiple times. Public hearing testimony will occur during the public hearing portion of the meeting. We will continue this practice unless any council member wants to make a motion to go back to having public comment on resolutions and ordinances separately. This time, is there any council member wishing to make a motion to do so? Seeing none, we'll proceed to citizen communication. Per council policy, citizen communication is the time on our agenda for the public to address council on business and affairs of the city. The city council is not able to hear any comments at this time on land use matters that are before or may come before council. Please reserve such comments for the appropriate public hearing. As a reminder, council must wait until administrative council business to take action in response to citizen communication. The city needed advanced registration in order to participate in citizen communication for this meeting. If you are currently in this meeting to speak during citizen communication, please listen for me to call your name and the clerk will unmute you so you may begin. If you do not respond or are disconnected, you may miss your chance to comment. Please give your name and address for the record and keep your comments limited to 3 minutes. Thank you. First on the list is Rick Wilson speaking about COVID-19.
Rick, if you're in the meeting, you could hit either *9 on your phone or use the raise hand function in Zoom. Mayor Huseman, I do not see Rick Wilson in the meeting.
Thank you. Next, we will have Steve Douglas.
Steve, you should be able to unmute yourself and you'll have 3 minutes once you begin.
Okay. Good evening, Mayor and City Council. Thank you for providing citizens comment. My ask tonight is I would like Commerce City Council to consider extending or giving a 50% credit towards a 2021 annual rec center passes for individuals who paid a full annual year pass. The rec center went full into effect with extended hours from 5 a.m. till 9:30, not until the first part of September. So I'm asking for consideration for those who made that expense and they weren't able to utilize the rec center, as far as folks who waited until the time, the 5 a.m. opened up, just last year, 2019, and to give that consideration. And please also understand about the mask rule and everything and how people abide by that. You still have people who are not wearing their masks. Most businesses right now through Adams County are really finding employees if they're caught wearing a mask improper. And that person will be fined $1,000 for first offense. So thank you for your consideration tonight. Thank you.
Thank you. If anyone wishes to speak at future council meetings, please check the meeting agenda and city website for information on how to register or submit written comments. Next on the agenda is presentations. The first one is the COVID-19 update. Will Interim City Manager Tinkleberg please provide an update on the city's overall response to the COVID-19 crisis?
Thank you, Mayor. Let me bring that up.
Wanted to let you know that staff is continuing to operate under the 2020 budget reductions that were put in place due to the revenue shortfalls. Also, cases for COVID-19 have increased in both Commerce City and in Adams County, as well as in many other states. As a result, Adams County has issued a final mitigation plan, and that was sent out to you on Friday. We're continuing to wear masks in facilities, and we require mask wearing by visitors to the facilities as well. In response to the citizen comment, staff has already administratively offered that to members who purchased passes at the recreation centers. So no action is needed by City Council. In addition, we have, as I mentioned before, in other meetings, we are recruiting to fill vacancies that were frozen during the COVID-19 early part of the pandemic. We realize that the workload is continuing, and therefore we have to be able to meet that workload. In terms of the reopening plan, we're still at level 2 of the plan and plan to continue at that level for the foreseeable future. The governor's public health order requires face coverings statewide, and Robert will give you an update on those health orders before I turn it over to Kathy. And I'll take this opportunity to introduce Kathy Blakeman. She's visible now. You can see her on the screen. So that way you know who she is for those of you who have not met her before. So with that, I will turn it over to Robert for a quick update on the health orders.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Thank you for your opportunity that you gave me to be off with a new child. So I appreciate that. I'm happy to be back. Just a brief update on a few of the public health orders that have issued in the last few weeks. The governor issued an executive order regarding evictions and foreclosures, requiring that landlords give a 30-day notice of intent, whereas the state law typically requires a shorter period before they commence an action. They also have to advise tenants of certain federal protections and other matters before filing that action. And then they are prohibited from charging fees for non-payment or imposing penalties per the executive order. So any renters should be aware of that and look for guidance in Executive Order 2020-223 to see how that may apply to them. As Roger mentioned, the governor extended the face covering order for 30 days from October 11th, as has Tri-County Health Department for Adams County. There is a waiver potential for certain indoor activities. And then the real, the big issue over the last few weeks has been Adams County's incidence threshold. On October 8th, the state issued a second amended Safer at Home dial order, which ranks counties and regions by their incidence threshold for COVID-19. Current concept, which is restricted, but not as restrictive as it could be. Level 3 is much more restrictive, and then even more restrictive than that is a return to the stay-at-home concept. As counties are trying to get towards level 1 of the safer at home, and then the even more unrestricted protect our neighbors phase. Counties are being monitored by the state, and on October 16th, I believe, or it may have been a little earlier, there was a notification from the state that Adams County exceeded their incidence threshold that would allow them to remain in level 2 on September 28th. And so with that, the Tri-County Health and Adams County have created a county mitigation plan and a supplemental public health order from Tri-County Health to try to keep Adams County in that level 2 plane that will then be assessed going forward. The Tri-County order relate to spectators and personal gatherings, spectators at sporting events. So spectators are not permitted at high school sporting events and adult rec league sports. And for youth sports leagues, those are limited to 25 people per field, including spectators and players, but not coaches and referees. And then there are limitations on personal gatherings, which are basically unregulated gatherings that are covered in the public health orders, where indoor gatherings are limited to 5 people. They're required to end at 10 p.m. And of course, with all of this, social distancing and mask wearing is still required. That is a very rapid fire summary of where we are on Adams County orders that apply in Commerce City. Thank you.
Thank you, Robert. Kathy, would you report on the internal departments?
Yes, good evening, Honorable Mayor and City Council. I'll give you the internal services update for the evening. All the information that Robert has just gone over, our community relations group has gone ahead and shared that information out on social media and the city website. So they want to stay in alignment with the pledge to protect as they can. So they'll continue to share that information as Adams County updates it. We have created several sub-teams that have been working on the CARES Act dollar distribution that we had talked about last week, so we can get the various services and dollars out to the community. We'll keep you updated as we can with that. The next expenditure report is due on November 9, and that's for submission to Adams County, and that might be a good time for us to perhaps give you an update during the COVID update at that time. So in courts, Judge Juarez and the Muni Court Supervisor, they are working to figure out how they want to change some of their processes and procedures over these next few weeks. They do know that that will include a lot more uses of the queueless system, and they're also going to be limiting the number of people that will be in the courts from 25 down to 15, and that's what they're looking at doing at this point in time. Under Human Resources, of the budgeted 402 employees that we do have 32 vacancies. We also have 274 VHE and seasonal employees, and we have 46 that are furloughed. I think that's the same as the last time. Turnover for the year to this point is very low. It's only 5%. For year end in 2019, we were at 15%. Human Resources has been keeping up with drafting and implementing and continually changing 6 new policies. That's that was required because of COVID-19. And they're continuing to work with legal on those, and many, many hours have gone into that. There's an employee recognition program that helps to keep employees engaged during this difficult period of time and recognizing each other, called Kazoo. Right now, we're at about a 67% participation rate. And let's move on to benefits. Open enrollment is coming up, and HR will be holding open enrollment meetings, which will have content for all employees. That'll be online. They are going to move forward with biometric screening and flu shots. And the wellness program right now is called Walktober. It's also intended to keep employees engaged during this difficult time. And we have a decent registration for that. And that's where they track some of their activities so that they can get points under wellness. In finance, they have 24 full-time employees with 3 vacancies. 21 people are working remotely most of the time, and that seems to be working well for them. They have some main lines where all questions can come in since people are not coming into the building. And they have a finance main line, and they also have a sales tax main line that are being kept very busy. And in the tax division, we have 21 active audits that are in process. We did have 6 audits that needed to be postponed due to COVID-19, but we have 0 audit payment plans that are being missed due to COVID-19. Taxes are now being paid on normal schedule. And last but not least, we have City Clerk. We are continuing to get in some new business licenses, 5 since the last time we reported. And we're getting many Cora requests, so 36 since we last reported. And our numbers year to date are up significantly from where they were in 2019 on both business licenses and Cora. And at least with business licenses for 2018, we're about even with where we were there. So with that, I'm going to pass this back to Interim City Manager Tinklenberg and see if he has updates for the city's external service departments.
Thank you, Kathy. Yes, in terms of the COVID-19, the activity within all of the departments has remained steady in terms of business demand that's coming in the door, as well as normal operations. In community development, a couple items just for note. When I talked about recruitment, we are in process of backfilling Jenny Oxmacher's position. If you remember, she was promoted from planner 2 to the principal planner position. She's been with the city for many, many years. I don't recall the exact number, but it was good to see an internal promotion. And I had reported 2 weeks ago that Chief Building Official Eric B. had started working with us, and he's now operations of a division, again, with the view of so we can see and effectiveness in terms of building plan review and building inspection. Those numbers continue to be strong. Again, in the last week, we saw 737 inspections conducted, and 108 permits were processed during that week as well. In terms of major projects, things like Legato, Mahi Greyhound Park, Platt Place annexation, all of those are moving forward, as well as many smaller projects. The Metro wastewater conditional use permit will be coming back to City Council on November 2 because they've worked out a settlement between the Metro Waste Division or Department and the Frico Ditch Company. In terms of oil and gas, we received an unsolicited proposal from Project Canary. And so we'll take a look at that, and that'll help inform us as we go out to an RFP for air monitoring that will go on once we get that whole process organized. Other projects, like Rocky Mountain Meats, they got their permit issued. Mahi Greyhound Park is moving forward with a foundation-only permit right now. Event Group, Encompass Event Group is going through a review for an office warehouse facility. Becknell is moving forward in Nexus North. So as you can see, there's many projects that are moving forward with no slowdown. The school has been submitted for review. Bimbo Bakery, their expansion is under review. So all of those functions are moving ahead. Neighborhood Services Division, we will be moving that division to a 7-day work schedule. That will start on October 26th, and that's to provide both more extended coverage on work days, but also coverage on weekends. So we'll now start seeing enforcement officers out on Saturdays and Sundays, since that seems to be where we're getting complaints about activities going on that should not be going on. In terms of economic development, they're the primary focus, and it's all hands on deck working on the business support and recovery grants. And so trying to get those grants out the door. As a result, I authorized them to delay starting the Economic Development Task Force. So I know one person already inquired about that when that's happening, but we need to get the grants out the door to meet the deadline before we can kick off the task force. Several of you heard about the proposed 7-Eleven at 88th and Rosemary. There was problems with the access due to the widening of both 88th Avenue and Rosemary. That access issue has been worked out now, and so that project can move forward again. Moving on to Parks, Recreation, Golf. The department, in cooperation with Tri-County Health, provided flu shots last week at 3 locations, the 2 recreation centers and at Dick's Sporting Goods Park. Total of 221 residents, seniors, as well as Commerce City variable hour employees received flu shots through that program. And then under the Pledge to Protect mitigation plan, we've had to reduce the picnic shelter occupancy from 25 down to 10 in response to the new health order. And then the citywide Halloween scavenger hunt began this past Saturday on the 16th, and that runs through Wednesday, October 28th. For example, on the 16th, it was a pop-up event at Veterans Memorial Park. And there are 87 families registered and participating in the scavenger hunt. It's been receiving a lot of positive feedback from those families that are participating. And then the Buffalo Run Golf Course worked out an agreement for use of some water from South Adams County Water and Sanitation District to supplement the existing well water. And that because of the extreme drought year this year, we ran out of water in terms of the water rights that we have. And so we could not continue pumping the well during this current month. And so this will supplement our irrigation to get us through until our new irrigation year starts on November 1. So it's just a short-term measure. And in terms of the golf course, the golf utilization remains steady for the fall season. So we've seen a good response with reopening since COVID-19. Also in Public Works, Vasquez improvements, CDOT will be coming back to City Council on November 9 to make a presentation regarding their update on that. A couple other things from Public Works. They're doing their normal fall projects that they do in terms of final mowing and road rehab, that type of thing. Train info, there's traffic picking up again, so Train info is collecting data again, and we'll be able to report back on that later. Another project that you may see either at the Civic Center or in various other locations is that the park staff is working with Roots Tree Service to replace dead trees at both the Civic Center, Pioneer Park, Ragweed Draw, and other open space areas. And that's anticipated to start in late October for that planting. With that, I will turn it back to you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you, everybody, for that update. I do want to comment on one thing before I open this up for the other council members. We did receive an email today from Tri-County Health that they do intend on extending the mask mandate indefinitely through the end of the COVID-19 pandemic. So that will probably be coming out tomorrow. Councilwoman Noble.
Yes, thank you very much. I actually don't have a question about this, but I do have a question about a speaker, a community resident who wished to speak. I think the meeting switched from the URA meeting to the city council meeting was a little confusing. And I know he was on there waiting to speak and then disappeared, but he's back on the list again. And is there any way to give a resident an opportunity to provide his community comment?
Mr. Sheasley, I'll defer to you if that's kosher for us to do so.
Yes, if this is the person that was registered, council could move to amend the agenda to reopen citizen communication.
Yes, he was registered. I would like to I am making a motion to amend the agenda to reopen citizen communication.
Councilwoman Grimes.
I'll second the motion.
I have a motion and a second to amend the agenda to reopen citizen communication for the purpose of allowing Rick Wilson to speak. Is there any discussion on this item? Seeing none, we'll take a roll call vote.
Councilmember Madera,
Yes.
Councilmember Alan Thomas,
Yes.
Councilmember Noble,
Yes.
Councilmember Wardiola,
Yes.
Councilmember Hurst,
Yes.
Councilmember Grimes,
Yes.
Councilmember Smith, Mayor Pro Tem Frank, excuse me.
Yes.
Mayor Huseman.
Yes,
Passes 8-0.
thank you. Councilwoman Noble, if you want to finish with your comments, we'll get to Mr. Smith after, excuse me, Mr. Wilson after all the council members have had a chance to talk on this.
Thank you. I have no further comments.
Any other council members have any comments to make regarding the presentation on COVID-19? Seeing none, Mr. Gibson, will you please allow Mr. Wilson his 3 minutes to speak?
Rick Wilson, if you're in here, if you could hit the raise hand function or *9 on your phone. Oh, there he is. Rick, you should be able to unmute yourself and you'll have 3 minutes once you begin.
Hi, this is Rick Wilson. I've been a resident of Commerce City for about 3 years now, and I've seen some significant changes as we move forward in this attempt to get a handle on COVID-19. And my concern, and I think is not only my concern, but a lot of people's concern, is that we're not seeing a whole lot of effect with the masks and the social distancing and the things that have been put out by Jared Polis to this date that have had any real effect on stopping COVID-19. In fact, recently, 85% of the people that wear masks catch COVID-19. So I'm wondering why we continue to follow this false pretend that Polis has put out to everyone that masks are going to save us and social distancing is going to save us. And it's just not true. And we see this in the community now. We see it in our businesses. Tonight, my wife and I went to Chili's in Brighton in the Prairie Center, and we were the only ones in there at 3 o'clock in the afternoon. And we're like, this is not normal. This is not the way this is supposed to be. Those people are starving. Businesses in Commerce City are starving. Restaurants especially are hurting. As a small business owner, I don't think you guys really understand what happens in the real world when you have to pay your bills, when you have to do the things that you have to do to keep your people on staff. You know, you got to go deep in your pockets to make that happen. And in this environment, there's not a whole lot of help for these folks. But the reality is, and we all saw it on TV, but we refuse to believe this, that Trump got well in like 2 days. And so, you know, the treatment is out there for people. There's no reason to be afraid of COVID-19 anymore. It's time to open up this city and go forward and move this thing in the right direction and not follow Polis's wrong direction. That's really all I have to say. So thank you for your time. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Wilson. One last time while we're on the subject, is there any council members have any comments they'd like to make regarding the COVID-19 presentation? Seeing none, we will move on to the consent agenda. The consent agenda includes items that are routine, procedural, informational, self-explanatory, and non-controversial. They are presented to council for a single motion and vote. Any member of council may ask to remove a specific item for further discussion and a separate vote. Tonight, there are 2 items listed under the consent agenda. Does anyone on council wish to remove an item off the consent agenda for further discussion? Councilwoman Noble?
Yes, I would like to remove resolution 2020-85 for a separate.
Okay, thank you. We will remove resolution 2020-85. Any others? Seeing none, I'm looking for a motion and a second to approve the consent agenda by council as seated as amended by Councilwoman Noble. Councilwoman Ellen Thomas.
Make a motion as to approve as stated.
Councilman Madera.
Second.
Thank you. Have a motion and a second to approve the consent agenda by council as seated as amended by Councilwoman Noble, which is to remove resolution 2020-85. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, will the city clerk please read the titles and we'll take a roll call vote.
Ordinance 2298, an ordinance authorizing temporary outdoor service areas for restaurants and bars in the city of Commerce City, Colorado, and repealing ordinance 2281. Councilmember Madera,
Yes.
Councilmember Allen Thomas,
Yes.
Councilmember Noble,
Yes.
Councilmember Wardila,
Yes.
Councilmember Hurst,
Yes.
Councilmember Grimes,
Yes.
Councilmember Smith, Mayor Pro Tem Frank,
Yes.
Mayor Huseman.
Yes,
Passes 8-0.
thank you. Councilwoman Noble, you requested to move 2020-85. Please let us know why it is that you wanted to discuss that separately.
Yes, thank you very much. Really an impressive group of people who have volunteered to serve on these commissions, and I thank the board and commissions committee for their nominees. We have the opportunity to review the nominees and also to join and to make a decision about them as well. I am referring specifically to the Planning Commission. I would like to recommend that Steve Douglas become the regular member and Jordan Ingram become the alternate. Mr. Ingram is with a midstream company. Midstream is a pipeline company, and that will be a very important issue that will be coming before the Planning Commission, as it will be coming before the City Council as well. And I believe that Mr. Ingram might have to recuse himself because of his relationship with a midstream company, should there be any conflict that arises. Also, Mr. Douglas, of course, has 8 years of experience on zoning and planning issues. And because we have so many critical things that are coming before the city, it's important to have very informed members who are part of the Planning Commission. That's one reason, is due to the fact that our charter includes a provision that the only way to overturn a Planning Commission decision is with a 5-person vote of the City Council. And that is even if we only have a quorum of, say, 5 members. So the Planning Commission members are extremely critical. My motion is to swap places for Mr. Douglas to become the regular member and Mr. Ingram to become the alternate member.
Yeah, have a motion to amend resolution 2020-85 to make Mr. Ingram an alternate member of the Planning Commission and Mr. Douglas the primary member of the Planning Commission. Is there a second? One last time we'll ask, is there a second to that motion? Seeing no request to make a second to that motion will fail. This time I'm looking for a motion and a second to approve resolution 2020-85. Mayor Pro Tem.
Motion to approve resolution 2020-85.
Councilman Hurst.
I second.
I have a motion and a second to approve resolution 2020-85. Is there any request for discussion? Councilman Hurst.
I apologize for not putting my hand down. I'm doing so now.
Any other requests for discussion? Seeing none, will the city clerk please read the title and take a roll call vote?
Resolution 2020-85, resolution appointing members to designated boards and commissions of Commerce City. Councilmember Madera,
Yes.
Councilmember Allen Thomas,
Yes.
Councilmember Noble,
Yes.
Councilmember Guardiola,
Yes.
Councilmember Hurst,
Yes.
Councilmember Grimes,
Yes.
Councilmember Smith, Mayor Pro Tem Frank,
Yes.
Mayor Huseman.
Yes.
Passes 8-0.
Thank you. Next on the agenda is a public hearing. The first public hearing is Resolution 2020-27 for adopting the 2021 budget and providing for 2020 tax levy. Tonight's public hearing will be to consider the 2021 budget. The hearing is open tonight and will continue to November 2nd to allow for additional comment. No vote on the budget will occur tonight. This time I will open the public hearing and invite Cheryl Karstens, Director of Finance, to make the presentation.
Good evening, Honorable Mayor and members of Council. I'm here to talk about the 2021 budget. As part of your packet, the budget resolution was included, as well as the presentation, which I will go over. Dylan, if you could bring up that presentation, please. And if you will advance to the next slide. Thank you. As a reminder, these are the key considerations that we established early on in the 2021 budget process that City Manager Tinklenberg presented to you. We wanted to be able to address police reform legislation, which had many different components to it. We wanted to evaluate service levels and prioritize critical services given the pandemic and its potential for ongoing impact. Wanted to continue to prioritize strategic capital investments, attract and retain high quality employees. And it was our recommendation that we maintain a healthy fund balance, recommending continued conservative approach to our spending and our saving. Next slide, please. I do want to point out that we did not include the draft of the city budget document in this packet because in its entirety, it is about a 300-page document. Per charter requirement, the draft of the budget was made available last Monday, October 12th. That can be found on the city's website, as well as a hard copy of that can be found at the lobby desk in the Civic Center if anybody does want to review that. This schedule is intended to articulate that this is a very long process, but it is done with a lot of thoughtful discussion. We include not only City Council, but department directors and their staff as we are working through the process. The process kicked off with the City Council retreat in January, and almost each month there was something happening as part of the budget process. We did have to make some modifications to the schedule this year due to the COVID-19 pandemic, and the majority of things were done in our remote or virtual environment. We want to say thank you to City Council for your participation and the direction that you provided to staff in being able to develop this budget. Next slide, please, Dylan. In the budget document, we refer to sources and uses, sources being the revenues, uses being expenditures. This is a recap of the general fund. We are anticipating total revenues of $97.7 million. This is comprised of all revenue sources, including the 2K general fund revenue, which we do list separately. And we do have a variety of transfers from various sources. From the Water Acquisition Fund, $530,831, which is the amount required to pay the debt service payment on the Series 2017B bonds. The 2K allocation is to provide for the ongoing O&M of the 2K projects. We are showing a 2K fund balance transfer of $7.3 million, which will be going to our CIP fund. And then in the general fund, we are anticipating use of $1.9 million. That is comprised of several sources, and I will discuss that in a moment. Next slide, please. The financial uses or expenditures of the general fund are categorized in many different ways. The top portion of the primary government shows the expenditures of all of the departments. The main change in this area from the last time you've seen this is in our public safety area. Per direction from City Council at the last meeting, you asked us to add back the proposed 2% base reduction to their budget. There are also a variety of transfers that happen every year from the general fund to various funds. You can see, I won't list all of them. The items that are the largest certainly are the transfers to CIP for various projects, and then the transfers that are required to our debt service fund to pay those debt service payments on the variety of issues that the city has. Again, this total for expenditures is $97.7 million, which matches the uses required by law. That budget has to be balanced. Next slide, please. Here's where I'd like to talk in more detail about the use of the general fund. Throughout the process, we informed you that we were expecting to use a portion of general fund balance to cover a variety of the budget requests that came in excess of the projected revenue. That ended up being just over $300,000. Adding back that 2% base budget reduction that the PD had offered is just over $417,000. And then in the 2021 budget, for the first time, we will be recording the highway users tax and the road and bridge revenue in the CIP fund. However, in order to align these existing revenues that lived in the general fund and getting them to the CIP, we had to plan for an additional transfer of revenues that exceeded prior year budgeted amounts of $1.2 million. This will put all highway users and road and bridge tax monies in the CIP fund for use on various projects. Those items together total the $1.9 million or just over from slide 4 that I touched on earlier. Next slide, please. This is a recap of the CIP sources and uses. Roger provided information on the various CIP projects throughout the budget process. The top references the sources and the transfers in from the various funds. There are transfers that come from a variety of funds to cover all of the projects approved throughout the budget. Total revenues anticipated in the CIPP fund is $16.8 million. Next slide, please. Financial uses in the CIP fund. This lists the various projects that Roger reviewed with you during the budget process that staff put forward or City Council put forward for consideration and ultimate approval. So those projects total about $13.4 million. In the event that our numbers work out the way we are projecting them to, we do show that various expenditures would not happen. Therefore, that money would live in fund balance in those various categories. That amount is just shy of $1.5 million. Again, expenditures totaling $18.4 million, which is balanced within the CIP budget. Next slide, please. As the mayor mentioned earlier, tonight opens the public hearing. No vote is happening on the budget tonight. November 2nd would continue that public hearing. After closing that hearing, we would ask that City Council act and approve the 2021 budget, which also gives us the authority to certify that mill levy to the county by December 15th. At this time, I am available to answer any questions. In addition to Roger is available to answer those questions as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Kirstens. Does anyone on council have any questions for staff regarding this item? Seeing none. Mr. Gibson, has anybody registered to speak on this matter?
Mayor Huseman, no members of the public registered to speak on this item and no written comments were received by the deadline.
Thank you, sir. This time I'm looking for a motion and a second to continue the public hearing to November 2nd. Councilwoman Ellen Thomas,
Make a motion to approve as stated.
Mayor Pro Tem Frank.
Second that.
I have a motion and a second to continue the public hearing to November 2nd. Is there any discussion? Councilwoman Ellen Thomas.
Oops, that was a mistake. I apologize.
Seeing no request for discussion, we'll take a roll call vote.
Councilmember Madera,
Yes.
Councilmember Allen Thomas,
Yes.
Councilmember Noble,
Yes.
Councilmember Wardiola,
Yes.
Councilmember Hurst,
Yes.
Councilmember Grimes,
Yes.
Councilmember Smith, Mayor Pro Tem Frank,
Yes.
Mayor Huseman.
Yes.
Passes 8-0.
Thank you. Next on the agenda is Resolution 2020-66, a resolution abolishing the Capital Improvement Project Citizen Advisory Committee. Will Mr. Gibson please make the presentation?
Thank you, Mayor and honorable members of the City Council. Give me just a moment here, please. All right, so tonight's resolution 2020-66 is for council to consider abolishing the Capital Improvement Project Citizens Advisory Committee, commonly referred to as KIPCAC. So just as a brief background, in 2013, Commerce City voters approved a 1% sales and use tax increase for the construction, operations, and maintenance of new parks, recreation, and road projects. To keep the community engaged, council created the KIPCAC, and that was for citizens to provide oversight and input on the various projects as staff presented them and were contracting out. The 2K program was completed on December 31st of 2018. Ahead of that 2K program completion, Council reestablished KIPCAC as a standing committee at the December 17th, 2018 City Council meeting. Since then, since February of 2020, KIPCAC has had 3 members out of the 11 possible positions on that board. Those positions are 2 representatives from each of the city's 4 wards and then 3 at-large members. And due to the lack of quorum, they've been unable to meet and conduct official meetings. Additionally, no new applications for KIPCAC has been received since December of 2019, despite continued advertisement and plenty of opportunities to serve on the committee. Due to the completion of 2K, CIP projects are now typically driven by current and projected conditions of facilities, amenities, parks, and roads, which leave little room for discretion for input and advisement on CIP projects that was more common whenever the 5 projects in 5 years, the 2K program was going on. Additionally, with the creation of new boards and commissions, this requires us to have to balance time and resources, especially right now, to these newer and more active boards and commissions that the City Council has created. With all of this in mind, we are recommending Council abolish KIPCAC by adopting Resolution 2020-66 as allowed in Section 11.1 of the City Charter. KIPCAC can be reestablished at any time council desires if another 2K-esque program is brought before voters and it's approved and we have another capital improvement projects type program. Council can always reestablish that and get the committee back up and running and conducting business as it did for the previous 2K program. In addition, this topic was brought before the City Council Boards and Commissions Subcommittee, and not to speak for everybody in the group, but the general direction was to bring this for approval before council and general discussion, and that's why it's getting its own presentation and not on consent. And lastly, the 3 current KIPCAC members were informed of tonight's resolution well in advance, and they've been encouraged to apply for any other boards or commissions vacancies that currently exist that may interest them. We always want to retain any members of our community, whether it's residents, businesses, or program service areas, that express any interest in our boards and commissions. So they were encouraged to apply for other boards and commission vacancies that exist. So with that, I am available for any questions or if council has any discussion.
Are there any questions for staff regarding this item? Seeing none, I'm looking for a motion and a second to adopt resolution 2020-66. Mayor Pro Tem.
Motion to adopt resolution 2020-66.
Councilman Hurst.
Second.
I have a motion and a second to adopt resolution 2020-66, which will abolish the Capital Improvement Project Citizen Advisory Committee. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, will the clerk please read the title and take a roll call vote?
Resolution 2020-66, resolution abolishing the Capital Improvement Project Citizen Advisory Committee, known as KIPCAC. Councilmember Madera,
Yes.
Councilmember Alan Thomas,
Yes.
Councilmember Noble,
Yes.
Councilmember Guardiola,
Yes.
Councilmember Hurst,
Yes.
Councilmember Grimes,
Yes.
Councilmember Smith, Mayor Pro Tem Frank,
Yes.
Mayor Huseman.
Yes.
Passes 8-0.
Thank you, sir. Next on the agenda is administrative council business. First item is Land Development Code Oil and Gas Financial Assurance discussion. Will City Attorney Mr. Sheasley and Community Development Director Jason Rogers please lead the discussion.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. Mr. Rogers and I are going to attempt to get council consensus on this matter to keep the LDC amendments moving forward with the acknowledgement that this provision hasn't been, there's no presentation here tonight, and that can be done if needed at a future meeting. But given the time, we wanted to see if council had a consensus on how it wanted to move forward on this financial assurance concept, such that we would include it in the final draft regulations that would then go forward for public hearing, at which time council could get stakeholder input that way. In short, back in July or early August, council had asked for additional information on bonding and financial assurance for who would pay the costs if a well within the city or a oil and gas production facility in the city was abandoned and not or fell into disrepair and wasn't solved by the operator. Currently, and so we provided some background information that the state estimates an approximate cost of around $82,000 for plugging and abandoning a well based off their average costs. That can go up or down depending on the factors related to the well. But the state's current bonding for remedying well sites is very limited. They often allow what's called a blanket bond, which doesn't necessarily tie to a specific well site. And so the state is in rulemaking now, is in a rulemaking procedure, I believe, anticipating new rules next year, but that leaves Commerce City in a gap. I think this is where council wanted to go to see if what we had proposed initially was appropriate, which was $90,000 per well as a bond through completion, at which time the bond would, or the financial assurance would be returned to the operator unless there was a reason for the city to withhold it, essentially, and keep it based on the level of bonding posted to the COGCC. And so there was some protection through the end of the well. However, on further review, I believe that we need to have, at a minimum, a more robust program that details what the financial assurance program would look like. But what we wanted to get from council was whether council was comfortable with the concept that had been recommended, which is a more detailed program relying on the same amounts, but with allowing the city manager or designee to create the program and delegate a lot of the responsibility for fleshing out the details of the program to allow flexibility, whereas council would set some minimums within that. One of the key components would be that the city could allow an operator to reduce their financial assurance if there was an assurance of the amount of work that would actually have to be done on a particular well, or financial assurance posted with the state. So I understand that's a lot, and there's not a presentation here, but I just wanted to see if council was comfortable with just including that in the land development code updates, and then with that concept going through the plugging and abandonment of a well, so essentially for the life of the well. So happy to take questions on that, or see if council had feedback directly.
Anyone on council have any questions or feedback from Mr. Sheasley regarding this?
And I will take silence as we're just going to go ahead with it.
Yeah, they're coming in. Council.
Okay.
Councilman Hurst.
Sorry, you cut off, sir. So just want to clearly define this again. How many wells would this affect in our city today? Of the applications that are in our city today?
If I may, council member, and good evening, full council. Are you specifying the applications that we currently have under review?
Yeah, because not all of them are in Commerce City. They're in our growth area, but again, they've not been annexed in our city, and they won't if this happens. So I just want to know how many are currently in our city boundaries today, and how many are outside but in our growth area.
Okay, Robert, you kicked me underneath the table if I misstep in my I think response to Councilmember Hurst's question. I understand it to be existing wells or those under review, and as we currently have our land development code standards and regulations in place, and those applications have been approved and or are undergoing a process, this requirement would not apply to them, given that they have already, once again, gone through our process. It could be misunderstanding where you're going with that. I think we have shared with you, just in a different scenario, maybe this gets to your point. I believe we shared at our last 2 oil and gas monthly updates that we are aware that some of the applications going under our review are currently inactive, and the applicant has the ability to take corrective action on those applications prior to that deadline. If not, they are then said to be withdrawn. If this ordinance was to be adopted prior to their resubmission of an application, then that would be applicable to any number of wells that are associated with their various applications. Is how I am understanding your question and how I would respond to it. Robert may have additional clarity or thoughts on the matter.
Just to say, I believe that these regulations, if approved, would apply to any permits applied for after this regulation is approved. And if property is annexed to the city in the future, the city would have a say in the terms of annexation as to whether this applied or not.
I guess I should have asked a more directed question. I apologize for that. Of the 7 applications that we have, how many currently are within our boundary lines?
The city only considers applications for well sites that would be within its boundaries currently, because we don't have jurisdiction outside of our boundaries.
So all of the applications on hand, and unfortunately I don't have that exact number of wells between each permit as they range in number and scope. But I would say you're on mute, Councilmember Hurst. So
go ahead.
Thanks, sir. So obviously there's a number of wells that range based on per permitted or based on permit site that's being proposed. Some ranging between 12 up to 36. So I don't have the exact number, but I would say safely between the 7 applications, we are talking at least 100 actual well locations themselves.
Thank you.
You're welcome, sir.
Councilwoman Noble.
Thank you very much for pulling this together, Mr. Rogers and Mr. Sheasley. I think having a more robust program would be very beneficial for Commerce City, especially going forward and since we have the opportunity. And there is, of course, the question that would remain about what part the COGCC would be involved in if a site was ever abandoned, who is responsible for the facilities that are left on top, whether they're any number of facilities that come along with one of these large pads. So it seems like a very good idea to me, and thank you for bringing it forward. I would like to see it included.
Councilman Madera.
Yeah, I was just going to chime in that I'm okay with it being included, but since Robert said I could just be silent.
Any other comment or questions for Mr. Sheasley or Mr. Rogers regarding this? Councilman Hurst.
I'll admit math is not my strong suit, but so we're saying $9 million for 100 wells needs to be bonded. Obviously that, if they're at different times, that $9 million would come in at different times, but needs to be bonded in case something happens. Is that kind of the gist of it?
So let me back up. The current applications the city is reviewing are under the regional operator agreement and the current land development code. The regional operator agreement is what defines the financial assurances for those applications unless the code is amended in some way that it could affect. And that regional operator agreement has its own provisions at $86,000. And I think that the well count for under those is substantially higher than 100. But yes, that is the idea, is that there would be financial assurance in the form of a letter of credit or surety bond of that amount to be maintained at least through completion and then potentially reduced. But yes, that is, and it is based off the average cost of plugging and abandonment and surface remediation for a well as determined by the COGCC.
And to Robert's point, I was just recently informed that we are at 142 wells for those applications that are governed under the regional operators agreement. So wanted to make sure I got you that information, sir.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
Any other comments for staff? Questions? Councilwoman Grimes.
Mayor, Mr. Sheasley, would there be an annual review of the bonds that are posted or the letters of credit that are posted from the city side to make sure that what needs to be bonded is bonded and also potentially bonds that should be released are released?
Yes, I think oversight in a bonding program is critical. However, for a city of our size, maintaining a robust bonding program would be difficult, would be my assumption. And so there may have to be staffing and third-party review. I believe the way our proposal is set up is that the burden would be on the operator to provide that request, and that the city would not on its own decide to reduce bonding. It would require proof and then evaluate a claim. But yes, that could be done fairly regularly. Yes.
Thank you.
Councilman Hurst.
I apologize. I'm getting used to this new mouse. I forgot to put my hand down.
So it looks like a consensus so far has been to proceed with your staff recommendations on this item.
Okay, thank you.
Mayor, if I may, very quickly, to your points and to council's consensus, obviously that brings us full circle with the outstanding issues and items that were to remain. So what staff's next step will be is to create a schedule for the Planning Commission and City Council public hearing step of the process. We will communicate that to Mayor and City Council. We will also communicate that to the broader public and our stakeholders who we have engaged through the process so that they are uniquely aware of those next steps.
Thank you, sir.
My pleasure.
Are there any council members wishing to make any comments regarding administrative council business? Mayor Pro Tem Frank.
So I received quite a few complaints over the weekend from 2 different communities. Some were coming from Dunes Park and some were coming from Potomac Farms. And it has to do with the parking problems there and how the HOAs don't have the authority to handle like the parking issues. It ranges from number of cars illegally parked on the streets. It ranges from larger vehicles, travel trailers parked on residential streets, causing blind spots, bottlenecking traffic, impeding cleaning efforts of residents and city streets. Due to policies of Commerce City, HOAs are unable to enforce their covenants regarding parking of the vehicles on city streets, people parking within inches of driveways, etc. And I also received a letter from Charles I'm going to butcher his last name, Wolfersberger. And he's concerned because the city staff basically issued a complaint to the Dunes Metro District stating that they're not allowed to put illegal parking signs. And so all of these people are wanting basically to see if the HOA can have some type of parking enforcement, some type of control over this, because again, now in the Dunes, they had to take down all the parking signs that were up, and that was a notice issued from Commerce City. So I would like to find out if we can have a discussion on this. I know we've had some talks in the past, but can we bring this back up and see if there's any way the HOA can we look into this further and see if the HOAs can do something, the Metro districts can do something to help with parking?
I'll chime in. Oh, Roger's got it. Yeah.
I was just going to say, this is scheduled for November 23 study session.
And Ms. Frank, I want you to know that in the draft parking regulations that we're bringing forward, there is an acknowledgement of private HOA enforcement and not attempting to restrict HOA enforcement as between residents and homeowners and the HOA who have that private relationship, while retaining the right of the city to have free and open public streets that are city assets that are open to the general public. The city has indicated that enforcing private parking restrictions on public streets would not be endorsed by the city, but in no way has ever indicated that the private enforcement as between homeowners and the HOA based on their private contractual obligation is something the city would interfere with, as that's an entirely private matter. So I hope that is some clarification, and we are including that concept to remind the HOAs of that, which is very similar to what Thornton has. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Councilman Hurst.
Thank you. I have a couple tonight, but just in response to the citizen communication tonight, and I'm sorry, Robert, to put you on the spot, just getting back, but I think this is an answer we've all heard before. Just want to make sure that we've discussed this again. Can you explain? Can you please explain why Commerce City City Council does not have a governing authority in the public health order?
Yes, that is not putting me on the spot. Thank you. Commerce City is not the public health agency, and the primary authority for public health rests with the state government at the level of the governor and Colorado Department of Public Health and Environment, and locally with the regional public health authority that has been established by agreement of Adams County, Arapahoe County, and Douglas County, which is the Tri-County Health Department. And so Commerce City does not have authority, even as a home rule municipality, to make public health orders that would contradict the public health order of the regional authority, Tri-County, or the governor or Colorado Department of Public Health and Environment.
As a follow-up question to that, sir, because we don't have any outlined authority, does that put us at risk of personal liability if we give our opinion, since we are not within our roles as city council? And obviously, I personally have no expertise in the matter. So does it limit, I mean, because of our position, are we limited on what we can say about it because we don't have an authority role in that situation?
I don't quite follow the question. I apologize.
No, let me explain it better. I don't know if it's a valid question. I guess that's what I'm trying to find out. You know, if you act outside of your council member role, I know there can be some personal liability associated with it, and I am simply asking for myself. You know, if you give your personal opinion or say something that may sound like a directive, do we hold personal liability on that because we don't have an authoritative position there?
I'm going to do the fun thing and punt to say I don't quite know the facts or understand. So it's very hard to say that to give a really clear answer. I think your personal liability as far as ultra vires outside the scope of your authority acts could arise from an action that is, yeah, no, I'm sorry. I'm trying to fumble towards an answer that can help, but I don't really have a response. Maybe we should talk offline to get to the situation you're thinking about.
Yeah, I just want to clarify why I'm asking. You know, obviously the talk of the times for obvious reasons. And I just want to make sure I don't put my foot all the way in my mouth. I've been doing my very best to just stay impartial and stay kind of in the middle of, like, you know, and I tell people, if you're unhappy with the current situation, I'm not sure this is the appropriate time to fight it. We can talk about emergency management after this pandemic is over and then kind of chain of command there. But just want to make sure, honest, like a personal liability standpoint, that I asked that question to try to better understand if I did have a opinionated response back to somebody, I wouldn't be putting myself out there for some personal liability. Next topic, because that got confusing. I apologize. Had a fairly long discussion with Sean Ford about the renaming of Highway 2, and he obviously feels honored for even the opportunity and the discussion to happen, but really wants us to reconsider, and just thinks, you know, there's bigger and other things to just, you know, to be worried about at this time, and would really like us to not move forward renaming Highway 2 as Sean Ford Parkway. So I just want to pose the question, and I'm asking for no action tonight, but if we were to consider moving forward and renaming Highway 2, I would like to propose that we change the name to Memorial Parkway to remember all the first responders and folks that have served our community and died in the line of duty doing so. So just something to chew on for you guys. If that is a direction we decide to take as council, that would be my proposal. And then my third and final topic tonight is, you know, one of my concerns about the land development codes moving forward is just economic setback during this time. And I was wondering, you know, what we're covered for in SRSA if we get sued for taking based off of our land development code direction.
And I'd be happy to look into that and get back to you.
Appreciate that, because, you know, one of the things that I'm concerned about is land development code passes and then we're tied up in court for several years, because that's, you know, some of the direction we're headed is absolutely going to be in for a fight.
We'll get you an answer on that.
Thank you.
Councilwoman Grimes.
Thank you, Mayor. I would like to address the conduct of Mayor Huseman during last week's study session. While this is not the first time conduct has been a concern, it was ultimately what made me decide to address my concerns this evening. During our study session, the mayor lacked professionalism and, in my opinion, attacked both city staff as well as a consultant. Staff regularly endures the harsh criticisms of the mayor in study sessions as well as regular council meetings. In addition to staff, council members regularly endure the mayor's unprofessional demeanor and cutting quips. The tenor of our council meetings has become uncomfortable and ultimately less productive as a result. This is not serving our residents or the community. Although many of our council members have differing opinions and don't always agree on the direction of decisions and policies, I would assert that the majority are able to work together with respect for each other in an effort to do what is best for Commerce City. As a reminder, Council Policy Number 2 specifically says the following. Council and the city manager are a team that will cooperate with each other in the conduct of city business. Council members will have respect for each other. When a council member is dissatisfied with the performance of a department, he or she shall always discuss it with the city manager and not the department head or staff. Council will take all concerns about department heads to the city manager only. The mayor will caution council members in chastising or criticizing staff in public. Council and the mayor will stay positive at all times in the conduct of council meetings. Lastly, Mayor Huseman has been noted as live streaming several meetings that are not intended for public viewing and as such is not representing Commerce City in an effective way if he cannot abide by the rules and policies of other groups in the metro area. As a result of these ongoing and escalating conduct concerns, I invite council to support my motion this evening to censure Mayor Huseman for a period of time spanning 2 regular city council meetings or 1 month in total.
Okay, we have a motion on the table to censure me. Is there a second? Mr. Madera?
I was going to chime in, but I'll go ahead and second.
I have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? Councilman Madera?
Yeah, I just want to start by apologizing to staff because while I wasn't at the meeting last week, I watched it on TV and quite frankly, it was difficult to watch. And, you know, it's not something that's, you know, just last meeting, it's been constant. And, you know, if staff has half the dread that I do coming to these meetings on Monday, just because you never know what's going to happen. It's going to be some kind of show. And, you know, they don't deserve that. We've all worked for terrible bosses and we've all had those in-your-face bosses, and there's really only 2 outcomes from that. One is you don't want to work hard and you just loathe coming into work. Or 2 is you're going to be confrontational. But in the position that staff is put in, nobody wins. And they can't, you know, be confrontational to basically the board because they don't want to lose their job. But, you know, it's not professional. When we're upset, you know, we know that some things don't happen how we would like them to happen, but to take them out on staff is just, it's not correct, you know, especially that
Watch this.
that meeting that we had last week was, you know, we received a presentation that quite frankly was not what we wanted to hear. And it was difficult to hear that, but that wasn't council's fault or staff's fault. And, you know, we had someone who's a professional in the industry come and give that presentation after lots of research and reaching out. And it was almost as if we just ignore the facts that were presented to us and took them out on individuals, and that wasn't right. So I just want staff to know that, you know, this isn't how all council feels, and we do appreciate you and everything that you do.
Okay, any other discussion? Councilman Wadiola?
Thank you, Mayor. Yeah, I would definitely, last Monday, echo the previous council members. That expert did not deserve how she was treated. And, you know, I talked to a lot of staff members who are on the front lines. And front lines, I mean, doing the hard work out there. And their morale is low because of our leadership. And it's hard for them because, especially during these times, they're not, some of them, this is what they do for a living, and they only worked here in Commerce City, and they're from Commerce City. And when they don't feel appreciated, or when they think the mayor is micromanaging them or always out to get them because of how he represents himself on council meetings, I mean, that's just not right for that staff, for all those staff members. And definitely agree. Staff needs to know that they are appreciated by council. And so I would definitely echo what Councilwoman Grimes and Councilman Madera have to say.
Thank you. Any other conversation? Seeing none, we'll take a vote. Oh, Councilman Hurst.
Again, apologize for the figuring out this sensitive new mouse I got. Yeah, I think there's always a couple sides to this. I think it is our role to be critique at times, right? We can critique and be positive as well. So I think we need to critique and question, you know, kind of what's presented to us at times. But I also, you know, will continue to strive. I get worked up myself sometimes, continue to strive to make sure that we show our appreciation for the staff and the hard work they put in and the preparation that it takes to put together these meetings, and want to continue to urge, you know, the professionalism in this. You know, it is weird not being all together and being able to work through some of the issues that we have right now. And I would just, you know, ask everybody to come together as a team and try to work through some of these issues. I think it's so much different being at home. And you know, I'm staring at 8 people's faces pretty, you know, we're Brady bunching this. And so a lot of human natural reactions happen as well that we don't get to see when we're sitting up on the dais. And I thought a lot about this just over the last week, because I will admit, was a little taken back by a comment that was said after I said something last week, and I wasn't happy about that after the meeting. And then just try to think about it over the week, how to approach that and just be professional about it. And so I'm just asking that we all kind of take a look at just the direction that we are going as a team, because I know we are all elected for certain reasons, and we all have our own individual beliefs and principles that we're going to continue to fight for. And I think we can do that very professionally. I think I'll be on the opposite side of the several issues for many people, but we can still find ways to work together and push forward for the city in a positive manner. So, you know, I too want to tell the city that, you know, I have been worked up on some issues lately, because I think they are important. And really that passion comes from me feeling like they're important. And so, you know, last week, I apologize if I came off as offensive to our third party, you know, our consultant, because I wasn't trying to counter the argument that her report was bad. I was trying to counter the argument that Commerce City sucks. I think we are a fantastic city with a lot to offer. And I want to make sure that I clarified my point when I said what I was trying to say is I'm proud of the amount of blue collar jobs that our city has and the industries that we have. And that statement about if we shut down Commerce City today, every corner of Colorado would feel it tomorrow. I still think that's true. And I just want to make sure that that statement was understood as not coming down on her, but just as one to defend our city's position and all the good stuff we do have going for us. So.
Thank Thank you. Any other discussion? Seeing none, we'll take a roll call vote.
Councilmember Madera,
Yes.
Councilmember Alan Thomas,
Yes.
Councilmember Noble,
Yes.
Councilmember Guardiola,
Yes.
Councilmember Hurst,
Yes.
Councilmember Grimes,
Yes.
Councilmember Smith, Mayor Pro Tem Frank,
Yes.
Mayor Huseman.
I abstain.
So that is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 in favor, 1 excuse, and 1 abstention. Motion carries.
Thank you. Any other items, Councilwoman Grimes?
None, thank you.
Thank you. Councilwoman Ellen Thomas?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. I just wanted an update as well if Roger or Robert, if he can, I didn't see it on any agendas. I continue to get several complaints from residents about an update on the trailer, mobile homes and boats on the streets. I know at one time we were working on, the ordinance, but can we get like an update on that or when it's going to be on a scheduled agenda or a study session?
Yes, that draft ordinance is also contained in the parking item that was discussed earlier with Ms. Frank's question. So I believe that is on the schedule to be discussed in November with the full draft ordinance.
Okay, thank you.
Any other administrative council business? Councilwoman Noble?
Thank you very much. I would have preferred if we had been able to have the opportunity to do this at the beginning of the agenda. But there was a terrible accident, of course, that we're all aware of that occurred on 104th and Highway 2. It took the lives of Officer Kurt Holland and Francesca Dominguez. I would like for all of us to join together and take a moment of silence in their memories, please. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilwoman Noble. Any other administrative council business? Seeing none, I have one item I would like to bring up. I've had some residents contact me that they are generating too much recycling, specifically cardboard boxes with nobody going out to shop at malls anymore. Amazon seems to be the way that everybody is shopping, and it's generating more cardboard than they can dispose of in their bi-weekly recycling tote. So my motion is to direct staff to enter into a supplementary contract with Republic Services to place a roll-off dumpster that is covered at the Municipal Services Center for the purpose of allowing residents to take their excess cardboard boxes as long as it is clean and in good condition and recyclable. I don't know if that means somebody has to inspect it or not, but allow them to drop off that excess recycling at the Municipal Services Center. I did speak with Republic, and I do believe the cost would be approximately $250 for a pickup of that roll-off each time they need to. Of course, staff could negotiate that to get a better price if possible. So that is my motion. Councilman Guardiola?
I would second that motion.
Thank you. I have a motion and a second to direct staff to enter into that supplementary contract for the purpose of a recycling roll-off for clean and dry cardboard to be placed at the Municipal Services Center. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, we'll take a roll call vote.
Councilmember Madera,
Yes.
Councilmember Alan Thomas,
Yes.
Councilmember Noble,
Yes.
Councilmember Guardiola,
Yes.
Councilmember Hurst,
Yes.
Councilmember Grimes,
Yes.
Councilmember Smith, Mayor Pro Tem Frank,
Yes.
Mayor Huseman.
Yes.
Motion carries 8-0.
Thank you. That is the end of administrative council business. We'll move on to council reports. Interim City Manager Tinklenberg.
Thank you, sir. Just wanted to remind everyone that I will be taking the rest of the week off for my first vacation of this year. So I'll be gone Tuesday through Friday, and Mr. Nichols will be the acting interim city manager. Thank you.
Thanks, sir. Hope you enjoy your time off and get those projects that you have around the house done. Mr. Sheasley.
Thank you, Mayor. Again, thank you for the digging out from a few weeks being out. And I want to thank Matt Hayter for filling in my absence. The litigation and ordinance reports should be coming out this week. That was one thing I failed to tee up before I went out. I am hoping to schedule an executive session for early November if the meeting time permits, to discuss a few pending and potential litigation items. So just that council is aware. I think it's worth checking in on a couple of items. But that is it for me. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Welcome back and congratulations again on the birth of your child. Any other council members wishing to make a report? Councilwoman Noble.
Yes, I met with Republic Services and in a Zoom call, and I didn't make that make note of that in the last council report, so I just wanted to put that on the record. That's it.
Councilman Hurst.
Similar to Councilwoman Noble, I also had a conversation with Republic Services about their facility on Tower Road. And the other thing is I just had a discussion about some of our marijuana laws in Commerce City. There's just some discussion about storage and storage of finished products, not any unfinished goods. And just wanted to notate that I had that conversation on Friday. And then the last one, Councilman Guardiola and I were in the annual retreat for the Cultural Council, and there was some really good discussion that I'm hoping we can bring forward next year, as some of these things develop. But wanted to make sure it's on record that, we are looking to make some minor changes to Concert in the Park, hoping that, COVID will be past us in the summer of 2021, and we can start having some good community events planned and bring the bands back that we're supposed to play this year and have a good time and get back to a normal feeling next summer.
Councilman Guardiola.
Thank you, Mary. Yeah, I too spoke with Republic about changing their entrance to the east side of their facility. Echoing what Councilman Hurst said, it was a very successful retreat for the Cultural Council. We went over bylaws and events and programming. And we also started the Youth Commission annual retreat, which was on a Thursday where we split it up. Last Thursday was the first meeting of it, and we have one coming up next week to see how the Youth Commission is moving forward. Thank you.
Any other council members wishing to make a report? Seeing none, as with most everybody else, I also met with Republic Services concerning their facility on Tower Road and their plans that they would to proceed with. Also last week sat down with Mark Bush to talk about the 120th Avenue widening project. Was contacted by Mark Campbell regarding building permits for his project as well. Would like to send some thank you outs. We'll start with thanking Adams County Sheriff Richard Regenborn and his staff, Brighton Police Department Chief Paul Southard and his staff, South Adams Fire Department Fire Chief Kevin Bensel and his staff, North Glen Ambulance Executive Director Rick Lindsay and his staff, Colorado State Patrol Colonel Matthew Packard and his staff, and ADCOM Director Joel Estes, as well as all the other first responders, law enforcement agencies that participated Friday night in the procession, taking Officer Holland's body to the morgue, and then today from the morgue to the funeral home. Would like to thank Councilwoman Smith and Mayor Pro Tem Frank for also being at the morgue whenever that procession arrived and being there to pay honor and respect to Officer Holland, as well as giving support to the police department officers that were part of that procession. Very difficult weekend for a lot of us as we had to deal with the outcome of a senseless tragedy. My heart goes out to the family of Officer Holland as well as the Dominguez family. Had a chance to speak with both of them over the weekend as well as today with the Dominguez family, and just absolutely heartbreaking what has taken place. Also want to thank Jody Hardy and her staff. I know Jody yesterday was at Bison Ridge working with the Fallen Heroes Foundation. Would like to thank everybody that is also working on that for funeral arrangements for Officer Holland. She has put in some serious overtime trying to get everything out and get everything set up for that. So thank you for that. I want to thank Public Works as I was headed to the police department on Saturday morning, about 1:30 in the morning, late Friday evening. They were out picking up all the barriers that have been put up to reroute traffic and everything. And, you know, people don't often see the extra work that does go in from a lot of our city staff that has to be done in order to facilitate a large scale investigation like that. So once again, this is a great tragedy. I do thank Councilwoman Noble for bringing up the moment of silence. I wish that had been included in the beginning of the agenda. That was my fault for not catching that. And I do apologize profusely for that. With that, I do not have any other report to give. We will adjourn to the ECA GID meeting using the same Zoom meeting. This time, call the meeting to order and ask Secretary to call the roll.
Board Member Madera.
Present.
Board Member Alan Thomas.
Present.
Board Member Noble.
Present.
Board Member Guardiola.
Present.
Board Member Hurst.
Present.
Board Member Grimes.
Present.
Board Member Smith. Vice Chair Frank.
Present.
Chair Huseman.
Present.
Mr. Chair, you have a quorum.
Thank you. This time looking for a motion to excuse those members not present. Councilwoman Alan Thomas.
Make a motion to approve as stated.
Board Member Grimes.
Second the motion.
I have a motion and a second to approve those members or to excuse those members not present. Is there any discussion? Board Member Alan Thomas.
That was an accident. Apologize.
Seeing no request for discussion, we'll take a roll call vote.
Board Member Madera.
Yes.
Board Member Alan Thomas.
Yes.
Board Member Noble.
Yes.
Board Member Guardiola.
Yes.
Board Member Hurst.
Yes.
Board Member Grimes.
Yes.
Board Member Smith. Vice Chair Frank.
Yes.
Chair Huseman.
Yes.
Passes 8-0.
Thank you. First on the agenda is Resolution ECAGID 2020-01, adopting the 2021 budget. The hearing is open tonight and will continue until November 2nd to allow for additional comment. No vote on the budget will occur tonight. This time I will open the public hearing. Are there any board members that wish to hear the presentation? Seeing none, are there any questions for staff regarding this? Seeing none, we'll ask the secretary if anyone is registered to speak on this item.
Chair Huseman, no members of the public registered to speak on this item and no written comments were received by the deadline.
Thank you. Board Member Noble.
This is the E470 GID, right? Is that what the one we're on right now?
Yes, this is the E470 commercial GID.
Okay. Yes, I would actually like an explanation of the E470 commercial GID. It's my understanding that this applies only to the north, or does it apply to all of Commerce City? Do all Commerce City residents have this on their property tax bill, or only the residents of the north? And what is its purpose?
Currently, there are no residents in this GID. It is only on commercial property by Tower Road.
So it would go on the property taxes of the commercial on Tower Road. And
Right.
why is that? Why?
Because that was the area set up to be included. So all of the land adjoining, let me rephrase that, almost all of the land adjoining Tower Road on the east side and some on the west side is included in the inclusion area for the commercial area general improvement district. And whatever property develops as residential property within that same area will be included in the residential area general improvement district. And so the purpose is to fund improvements out in that area for public infrastructure. So that includes water and sewer mains, street improvements, street lights, whatever, drainage, whatever other improvements are necessary to pay for the regional type of infrastructure that's needed for the development out there.
So this is different than the North Range General Improvement District that was already established. So the homes that exist and the commercial exists now are covered under that. And this only applies to the new residential and commercial, or within recent years, along Tower Road. Correct?
Yes, Tower Road and east, yes.
Thank you very much.
Sure.
Other questions for staff? Seeing none, I'm looking for a motion and a second to continue the public hearing to November 2nd. Board Member Grimes,
So moved.
Board Member Hurst.
Second.
I have a motion and a second to continue the public hearing to November 2nd. Is there any discussion? Board Member Grimes, Board Member Hurst,